Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Rukmini Dwarkadish, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Rukmini Dwarkadish. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Balladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premadani, Hari Bol, Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahangsa, Parivajak Acharya, Ashtarsa Śiśnaṁ. ISKCON BBT founder, Charles Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Leela Prabhupada, Om Vishnupad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishya Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakahosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhara Shivasya Gaurvata Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Gira Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajamumi Nabadam Ki Jai. Shri Nabadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. The most beautiful worship. Shri Shukmani Dwarkadesh Ki Jai. Shri Shukmani Dwarkanath Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauritai Ki Jai. Samabeta Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead Ki Jai. ISKCON Los Angeles Yatra Ki Jai. Brihan Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. International Food for Life. Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to the Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamā shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, whose worship with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable pact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing our reading from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 26, which is entitled Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. And today we're going to do two verses, 56 and 57. We'll recite 56 responsibly, and it does have a purport, but it's very short, so we'll move on to 57. Nirbibheda virājas tvag roma-śmaśrv-ādayas tataḥ tata oṣadhayaś cāsan śiśnaṁ nirbibhide tataḥ nirbibheda virājas tvag roma-śmaśrv-ādayas tataḥ tata oṣadhayaś cāsan śiśnam nirbibhide tataḥ. So remember the sandhya. The word is śmaśru in the synonyms with a U, but because in the transliteration it's changed to a V so that you run it together with the next word. Nirbibheda virājas tvag roma-śmaśrv-ādayas tataḥ tata oṣadhayaś cāsan śiśnam nirbibhide tataḥ. Please chant. śiśnam nirbibhide tataḥ. Nirbibheda virājas tvag. Roma-śmaśrv-ādayas tataḥ. Tata oṣadhayaś cāsan. śiśnam nirbibhide tataḥ. Nirbibheda virājas tvag. Roma-śmaśrv-ādayas tataḥ. Tata oṣadhayaś cāsan. śiśnam nirbibhide tata. Vaishnavis. śiśnam nirbibhide tataḥ. Nirbibheda virājas tvag. Roma-śmaśrv-ādayas tataḥ. Tata oṣadhayaś cāsan. śiśnam nirbibhide tataḥ. Anyone else? Nirbibheda virājas tvag. Roma-śmaśrv-ādayas tataḥ. Tata oṣadhayaś cāsan. śiśnam nirbibhide tataḥ. Okay, synonyms. Nirbibheda appeared. Virājaḥ of the universal form. Tvak, skin. Roma, hair. śmaśru, beard, mustache. Ādayaḥ, and so on. Tataḥ, then. Tataḥ, thereupon. Oṣadhayaḥ, the herbs and drugs. And. Āsan, appeared. śiśnam, genitals. Nirbibhide, appeared. Tataḥ, thereafter. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. Then the universal form of the Lord, the virāṭ-puruṣa, manifested his skin, and thereupon the hair, mustache, and beard appeared. After this, all the herbs and drugs became manifested, and then his genitals also appeared. Please repeat. Then the universal form of the Lord, the virāṭ-puruṣa, manifested his skin, and thereupon the hair, mustache, and beard appeared. After this, all the herbs and drugs became manifested, and then his genitals also appeared. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The skin is the site of the touch sensation. The demigods who control the production of herbs and medicinal drugs are the deities presiding over the tactile sense, which means the sense of touch. Okay, next verse, 57, I'll just read myself. Retas tasmād apa āsan nirbibhide gudād apānopanascha mrityu loka bhayankaraha. Translation, after this, semen, the faculty of procreation, and the god who presides over the waters appeared. Next appeared an anus, and then the organs of defecation, and thereupon the god of death, who is feared throughout the universe. Purport. It is understood herewith that the faculty to discharge semen is the cause of death. Therefore, yogis and transcendentalists who want to live for greater spans of life voluntarily restrain themselves from discharging semen. The more one can restrain the discharge of semen, the more one can be aloof from the problem of death. There are many yogis living up to 300 or 700 years by this process. And in the Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated that discharging semen is a cause of death, cause of horrible death. The more one is addicted to sexual enjoyment, the more susceptible he is to a quick death. Nama Om Virāṭ-puruṣa Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshtarine Om Agyana Timbarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishnang Shapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyahang Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tang Sajivam Swadvaitam Savanutam Purjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitang Shah Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhya Shah Kripa Sindhu Evicha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in common joking, when there's an event at a stadium and there are hardly any people there, very small crowd, people joke that there are a lot of people disguised as seats. They're disguised as empty seats. So this morning we have a temple room with a lot of devotees disguised as marble tiles. In other words, the room is empty. Where is everybody? I just found out just like an hour ago that Brigapati arranged a program in San Diego and he took 10 devotees with him. They just left. So anyway, programs have to go on. It's not a problem. And if you're scheduled to speak and you come, and even if there's nobody here, you should speak. That happened in Bhaktisiddhanta's time, that some of his preachers were complaining they would go long distance to a program and their room would be empty, practically there's nobody there. He said, never mind, you speak anyway, chant anyway. He said there are living entities in the walls, they benefit from the vibration. And of course nowadays there are living entities on the internet, they're listening. So we should never lament. If we're scheduled to speak and there's nobody there, speak anyway. So this section, we're continuing to hear of the evolution, not in the sense of material evolution, but the spiritual progression of how things come into being. Different organs and objects of the senses and the demigods, all of this is being explained. Now the second verse, obviously Prabhupada wrote a longer purport for a reason, and we'll get into that. But this similar progression was described in the second canto, I believe chapter 6. Yeah, Purusha Sukta confirmed, where Lord Brahma was explaining again how this progression of the material elements and what is this situation of the virāṭ-puruṣa. So he said there a verse that kind of stuck in my mind. Apam viryasya sargasya, parjanyasya parjanyasya. Apam viryasya sargasya, parjanyasya pastu, adātyānana nirvite. Apam viryasya sargasya, parjanyasya pastu, adātyānana nirvite. Apam viryasya sargasya, virāṭ-puruṣa, and what it means. So I'm going to read, because that purport is directly related, but also gives some additional information that's important. So the translation for that verse is, from the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The genitals and the pleasure of begetting counteract the distresses of family encumbrances. One would cease to generate altogether if there were not, by the grace of the Lord, a coating, a pleasure-giving substance on the surface of the generative organs. Everything is in the Bhagavatam. We shouldn't, if we try to, I like this part, but I don't like that part. Prabhupada was not in favor of that. He said, no, everything in the Bhagavad Gita, everything in the Bhagavad, it's all important. So don't try to jump over just, this, I don't want to deal with this. No, everything is there for a reason. Because if we don't appreciate these points, then our appreciation of the 10th canto, which we're going to discuss a little bit because today is Katyayani. Okay. All right, Krishna. Anyway, the purport continues. This substance gives a pleasure so intense that it counteracts fully the distress of family encumbrances. A person is so captivated by this pleasure-giving substance that he is not satisfied by begetting a single child, but increases the number of children with great risk in regard to maintaining them simply for this pleasure-giving substance. This pleasure-giving substance is not false, however, because it originates from the transcendental body of the Lord. In other words, the pleasure-giving substance is a reality, but it has taken on an aspect of pervertedness on account of material contamination. In the material world, sex life is the cause of many distresses on account of material contact. Therefore, the sex life in the material world should not be encouraged beyond the necessity. There is a necessity for generating progeny, even in the material world, but such generation of children must be carried out with full responsibility for spiritual values. The spiritual values of life can be realized in the human form of material existence, and the human being must adopt family planning with reference to the context of spiritual values and not otherwise. The degraded form of family restriction by use of contraceptives and so on is the grossest type of material contamination. Materialists who use these devices want to fully utilize the pleasure potency of the coating on the genitals by artificial means without knowing the spiritual importance. And without knowledge of spiritual values, the less intelligent man tries to utilize only the material sense pleasure of the genitals. So, this knowledge is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam and clearly explained by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada for us to deliberate on and for us to change what is the natural inclination in the materially contaminated existence, which is to use everything for our pleasure. My body, my money, my wife, my children, my. That's called janasya mahoyam ahang mameti. Due to being in moha, illusion, the living entity sees everything in terms of I and mine. So when we understand this progression that's being described in the 3rd canto, where we are right now, 26th chapter, and here back in the 2nd canto, chapter 6, we understand that because everything is generated from the Lord, it has to be used in the Lord's service for His pleasure. But in the material world, our experience is that if we do something for someone's pleasure, they may be pleased for some time, but then they can turn against you. Prabhupada gives the example. 2 gentlemen, they've been friends since childhood, and since childhood they see each other every day and they discuss, they meet, they chat. So now they're elderly and they're still following that same program. So they meet one morning and one friend sees the other friend is very downtrodden. He's looking very upset, displeased, not happy, unhappy. So I said, my dear friend, what's going on? No, come on, we've been friends for our whole lives. Tell me what's going on. No. So he keeps pushing, and finally the guy says, I'll tell you what's wrong. I've been married to my wife for the last 40 years, and I'm trying to please her for the last 40 years, and she's still not pleased. That's what I'm upset about. So this is material life in a nutshell. You make friends, you have family members, you're part of a community, you're part of a country, and you try your best to please others. You have to, because if you don't, nobody likes somebody who's just self-centered. If you want to have any nice interactions in life, you have to learn how to try to please others. It's a given. You must do it. Otherwise, people will shun you. So we all learn gradually how to try to please others. And after a lifetime of trying to please them, they're still not pleased. I've given an example. It's a real story. It's not a fictitious thing. There was in Italy, a few years back, a family got together for the 50th wedding anniversary of the father and mother, or grandfather, grandmother, by the time they had grandchildren. And on the day of the thing, the father didn't show up. So obviously everybody's upset. What's going on? Why is he not here? So they track him down. And at first he refused to say why he wasn't coming. But then finally he told them. He was cleaning out the attic, and he found a stack of letters that his wife of 40 years, 50 years, whatever it was, had written to some lover that she had taken while he was away at World War II. He went to World War II. He was fighting for his country or for whomever, because Italy was on the axis with the Germans at one point. Anyway, he went to war. He was fighting, and while he was gone, his young wife, because it was, they were young then, they had just gotten married, she made some lover, and she wrote a bunch of letters, and they were writing back and forth, and she saved them and hid them in the attic. And after all these years, he found them. And he said, that's why I'm not coming. As a matter of fact, I'm going to divorce her. So of course the children, grandchildren, they were freaking out. No, how can mom and dad divorce at this age? So this is a material world. So Prabhupada said, don't invest your time and energy trying to please another conditioned soul. Yes, you have to try to make nice relationships, but don't put your hopes and dreams there. Said, rather than trying to please some son or daughter or husband or wife or mother, father, or anything, friend, neighbor, put at least some portion of your energy in trying to please Krishna. You'll never be disappointed. He said, if you make Krishna your son, Krishna your friend, Krishna your lover, Krishna your father, Krishna your master, you'll never be disappointed. Because Krishna never disappears and he never turns against you. We're his parts and parcels. He's never against us. He may discipline us. He may put us in the material world to be disciplined because we want to come here. We want to turn away from him. But he never turns against us. He never turns away from us. He's always there. All we have to do is follow the program that he outlines, which is in this age is so easy. Now in the purport, Prabhupada makes reference to yogis who, because they control the discharge of semen, they live 300, 700 years. Obviously he's talking about Kali Yuga, because in previous years, the previous age, Dwapara Yuga, people were living on average up to 1,000 years, and before that Treta Yuga, on average up to 10,000 years. Before that, Satya Yuga, on average up to 100,000 years. So he's not speaking about those previous ages. He's talking about now. In Kali Yuga, there's still yogis who, because they control their discharge of semen and they practice Ashtanga yoga or some form of yoga, they can extend their lives for hundreds and hundreds of years. But as Bhakti yogis, we're not necessarily following those principles to have long life. We've seen in our line, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, how many of the acharyas, they don't stick around very long. Lord Chaitanya himself, what was his age when he left? Yeah, not very old. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, 68 or something like that, 64, 68. So the acharyas show that we're not necessarily here to live a long life in this particular body. We're here to use our energy in Krishna's service. So sometimes, yes, the acharyas live long, just like Jagannath Das Babaji. He was 127 years old when Bhaktivinoda Thakur discovered the Yogpith, the appearance place of Lord Chaitanya. And he brought him there. They had to bring him in a basket. He couldn't walk. Two men carried him in a basket. And his eyelids were so old that he wasn't blind, but the lids were so drooped down that he couldn't see. He had to lift his eyelids to be able to see. So sometimes the acharyas, they stay 100-something years. But for the most part, they don't stay very long. They come, they do their business, they leave. So we should be in that mood. We've been given a business. What is our business? Assist Srila Prabhupada in spreading Krishna consciousness. That's it. And every one of us has particular talents that can be used in that way, especially nowadays in the internet age. Some devotees, they concentrate on preaching on the internet, and they have effect. Some put things on the internet without even thinking so much about it, and you get some effect, just like in my own case. I have a YouTube channel called Krishna Stock. And when I travel, as you know, I take videos and pictures, and I put videos there of kirtan, especially big festival kirtans. So when I was going to Ukraine every year, I went to Ukraine every year starting in 2015 until COVID came in 2020, and then The invasion, yes, it's an invasion. Some people don't admit it. I may have told a story. I buy and sell, camera equipment. So I was buying a lens from some guy, and he came with his girlfriend to Copenhagen as we met there. And we were chatting. He's from Turkey. So I said, yeah, I used to go to Turkey quite a bit. I go through on my way to Ukraine to that festival I would go to. And I told him, it's just like this. Until the COVID, it's interrupted, and then the invasion. And the girlfriend broke it. There was no invasion. She's from Russia. No, there was no invasion. So I said, whatever, you call it what you want. But all I know is I can't go anymore. So, we don't get into the politics of the world. We don't get into social experiments. What we follow is what the acharyas want us to do. So as I was saying, I put all these videos on my YouTube channel. And this year when I was in India, earlier in the year I was in India, Mayapur, and when I was in Mayapur, some young man came up to me and said, oh, you're Arcita Prabhu. He said, I watch your videos on YouTube. He said, actually, I became Krishna conscious because I was watching your videos on YouTube and I'm so attracted to them. He's Indian. He said, I decided to go to Mayapur and surrender. So he went to Mayapur, joined the Bhakta program, and now he's a brahmachari there. So, whatever we can do, whatever talent you have, you're a singer, sing in such a way, not for your becoming glorified and, for your self-aggrandizement, but for spreading the holy name. Prabhupada said, when we go out and chant in the street, what to speak of when we chant in the temple, we should chant in such a way that the audience are left with an impression of devotion to Krishna. Not necessarily that that person has such a great voice or they, play some instrument so well. They're left with an impression of devotion to Krishna. That is the success. And Surya used to tell this story quite often, that it's not about your voice. He said when he was in Chicago, Naikama probably knows. You were probably there, Naikama, right? When that happened. That the temple president, who was a good singer, good musician, he trained all of the devotees because Prabhupada is coming, and how to play cartels like this, and wampurs like that, and mananga like that, and how to sing this melody, that melody. It was all arranged. And then when Prabhupada came for that first Guru Puja, he started singing. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti. And Prabhupada said, who is that Rakshasa? Stop. And he made Trivikram Maharaj chant, who doesn't have such a good voice. Maharaj, no offense, but it was known. And Prabhupada said, Trivikram, you lead. And he led the kirtan. So again, it's not about using our abilities to show off or to get some money or whatever. Whatever talent we have, whether it's artistic or scientific, like nowadays a lot of devotees, they maintain websites for the temples. Arjun Gopa is maintaining this one. He writes me from India to find out who's going to be giving the Sunday feast lecture, like that. So whatever talent you have, physical or mental or intellectual, use it in Christian service. You will be happy, Krishna will be happy, and then whether the life is extended or not, that's up to Krishna. We leave that in Krishna's hands. We don't worry about it. The materialists, they try to enjoy the senses, and then when they see the end coming, then they want to kill themselves. Assisted suicide, they want to do. But as we know in that pastime with Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami, he told them, no, you cannot do that. You've given me your body, that body belongs to me. So you don't have a right to even think about killing your own body. So again, this section, it's very instructive, very informative. I'm going to end by just reading a little bit since it's Katyayani Virāṭ. It begins today and extends for 1 month, ends on the next Purnima. And we know the story. The gopis, they want Krishna as their husband. So this is from the 22nd chapter of the Krishna book. I'll just read some of it. It's a long chapter, but that chapter is entitled, Stealing the Garments of the Unmarried Gopi Girls. According to Vedic civilization, unmarried girls from 10 to 14 years of age are supposed to worship either Lord Shiva or Goddess Durga in order to get a nice husband. Now there's one commentary somewhere that explains this is not Mahamaya that they're worshiping Yogamaya, but in this form. But the unmarried girls of Vrindavan were already attracted by the beauty of Krishna. They were, however, engaged in the worship of Goddess Durga in the beginning of the Hemanta season, just prior to the winter season. The first month of Hemanta is Agrahayana, October, November. And at that time, all the unmarried gopis of Vrindavan began to worship goddess Durga with a vow. They first ate havishyana, a kind of food prepared by boiling together mung dal and rice without any spices or turmeric. So if you want to pray for some benediction, maybe we should think of doing that. Only eat havishyana, mung dal with rice and spices, without any spices or turmeric. According to Vedic injunction, this kind of food is recommended to purify the body before one enacts a ritualistic ceremony. All the unmarried gopis in Vrindavan used to daily worship goddess Katyayani early in the morning after taking a bath in the river Yamuna. Katyayani is another name for goddess Durga. The goddess is worshipped by preparing a doll made of sand from the bank of the Jamuna. It is recommended in the Vedic scriptures that a deity may be made from different kinds of material elements. It can be painted, made of metal, made of jewels, made of wood, earth, or stone, or can be conceived within the heart of the worshipper. The Mayavadi philosopher takes all these forms of the deity to be imaginary, but actually they are accepted in the Vedic literatures to be identical with either the Supreme Lord or a respective demigod. The unmarried gopis used to prepare the deity of goddess Durga and worship it with chandan pulp, garlands, incense, lamps, and all kinds of presentations, fruits, grain, and twigs of plants. After worshiping, it is the custom to pray for some benediction. The unmarried girls used to pray with great devotion to goddess Katyayani, addressing her as follows, quote, O supreme external energy of the personality of Godhead, O supreme mystic power, O supreme controller of this material world, O goddess, please be kind to us and arrange for our marriage with the son of Nanda Maharaj Krishna. End of quote. The Vaishnavas generally do not worship any demigods. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has strictly forbidden all worship of the demigods for anyone who wants to advance in pure devotional service. Yet, the gopis, who are beyond compare in their affection for Krishna, were seen to worship Durga. The worshippers of demigods sometimes mention that the gopis worship goddess Durga, but we must understand the purpose of the gopis. Generally, people worship goddess Durga for some material benediction. Here, the gopis prayed to the goddess to become wives of Lord Krishna. The purport is that if Krishna is the center of activity, a devotee can adopt any means to achieve that goal. The gopis could adopt any means to satisfy or serve Krishna. That was a super excellent characteristic of the gopis. They worshipped goddess Durga completely for 1 month in order to have Krishna as their husband. Every day they prayed for Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, to become their husband. So the rest of the chapter is very interesting. You should read chapter 22. But I'll stop here. It's already 8:28. And we'll leave a minute or two if there's any question. Yes, Rabindranath. Is it on? I can barely hear you. The top, make sure the top slit is in the green position, not the red position. No, Prabhupada's point wasn't that you shouldn't do things nicely. When he sent those 3 couples to London in '69, he personally trained them how to play kartals nicely, how to chant different melodies. So it's not about that. It's about your mentality. And as a guru, Prabhupada could see the mentality. He knew that this person, although they made such nice arrangement and they were trying to sing so nicely, it wasn't about pleasing Prabhupada. It was about putting on a show. presenting themselves as being a great kirtaniya. So that's why Prabhupada stopped it. In the beginning of the Mayapur festival, one second, I come. In the beginning of the Mayapur festival, we used to have a kirtan competition. And I was there in 76 when Prabhupada said, stop it, no more. They used to bring in devotees from all over, and then they would have this group sit down and chant, and then that group sit down and chant, and then they would, we'd vote who is better. And Prabhupada said, no, stop it. It's not about, again, competitiveness or you're better than me and or I'm better than you. It's about devotion to Krishna. So Naikatma wanted to say something about that incident. He was there. Oh, the other one is on.
Yeah, during that incident, and it was also the following Mayapur festival when Prabhupada stopped that, because that same group from Chicago and a few other groups all came to Mayapur, and the whole thing was a theatrical performance. The way they would stand, the way they would dress, the way they would move, and who would come in at what time, and it was just over the top. And Prabhupada cut it in 2 seconds. And the thing in Mayapur was the same situation exactly. It was all about theatrics and juggling your vocals beyond reason. That's not kirtan.
No, yeah, exactly. No, like I said, I was there in 76 when the problem was, not problem, what happened was there were a lot of really good kirtaniyas, some of them from Bangladesh, especially, you may remember, but they grew up with kirtan, and so that was their style. And then these devotees from the West would try to imitate that. I remember especially there was one, you remember Krishna Kirtan?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was his style. It was part of his culture, it was part of his persona. He wasn't putting on a show. But then other devotees would try to imitate it. Hare! Like that. Yeah, and it just became a show. It became a disturbance.
It's a hare that goes on for about 5 minutes.
Exactly. I have recordings of it, if anybody ever wants to hear. But he was good. But that was his culture, that was how he was raised, and that was his natural presentation. But to try to imitate that, just to show off that you can also sing like that, Prabhupada didn't want that. He didn't want this, so he cut that competition. No more kirtan competition. Okay, Ransa Rashima Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.